Two people, both standing close to the edge of giving up, end up crossing paths, and in that moment, they discover something far more beautiful than death itself. The chapter opens with a shy girl standing at the top of a tall building. Her hair is messy and uneven, and there's a dark bruise on her lip. As she looks down from the edge, it's clear in her blank eyes that she's lost all hope and no longer wants to keep going. She stares at the sports field far below and quietly wonders if falling from this height would hurt as badly as it does in movies. Before this, we're introduced to the male lead, a quiet boy sitting silently in class while the room fills with chatter. He doesn't enjoy lunch breaks. They only remind him of how alone he is. While everyone else laughs and talks with friends, he watches from the sidelines, feeling left out and invisible. To escape that feeling, he does what he always does. He grabs his lunch and leaves the classroom, walking to the rooftop where no one can bother him. Up there, away from everyone's happiness, he finally feels a bit of peace. Instead of just sitting down to eat, he takes his usual routine one step further. He climbs past the rooftop fence, a place so dangerous that a small push could send someone falling. The wind messes up his hair as he settles at the edge, thinking to himself how his lunch has already gone cold and soft. In his mind, he admits that this is as far as he can go, literally and emotionally, the very edge of everything. But during this season, whenever he comes to this spot, he's not alone. A girl from another class always shows up too. She never sits, she just stands there silently, right near the edge. As a strong wind rushes past them, he warns her gently, telling her to sit down before she accidentally slips and falls. She listens, sits beside him, and gives him a small, polite bow. Even though they meet here often, this rooftop is the only place their lives seem to overlap. He doesn't know her name or why she always comes up here, but anyone who looks closely can tell she's been through a lot. Her body is marked with bruises, and her uneven haircut seems like it was forced on her, possibly from being bullied. As she begins to eat her lunch, a faint blush appears on her cheeks, a small sign of emotion on an otherwise quiet face. One thing is clear, she's been hurt badly by the people around her. When she noticed that he was staring at her a bit too intensely, she looked at him and asked if he had something to say, or if there was a reason behind those sharp stares. Caught off guard and feeling awkward, he quickly tried to shift the moment by starting a casual conversation. He smiled nervously and pointed out how funny it was that both of them had ordered shumai bento from the school cafeteria. But the moment she heard that, she froze. Panic rushed across her face, and she suddenly lowered her body and offered him her entire lunch with a shaky voice. She had misunderstood his words and thought he was trying to take her lunch by force. Scared, she handed it over, worried that something bad might happen if she didn't. He was shocked and quickly explained that he wasn't trying to take anything from her. He told her to relax, assuring her that everything was okay. As she apologized, a small fish-shaped soy sauce bottle slipped from her bento and tumbled toward the edge. She reached out, trying hard to catch it. But in the end, the tiny fish fell all the way down to the ground below. She looked heartbroken, as if she'd just lost something precious. Feeling guilty that his words caused all this, he offered her his own soy sauce bottle. But just as he did, his little fish slipped too, and followed the other one down, reuniting with its lost twin far below. Feeling a bit embarrassed, he looked away with a slight frown. But when he did, the girl let out a soft giggle and showed a bright, genuine smile, something so beautiful it lit up the moment. Somehow, this dangerous rooftop, which once felt cold and lonely, had slowly turned into a quiet place where they were getting to know each other little by little. They were starting to grow closer, even in such a broken space. But life isn't always kind. The boy, too, had been dealing with pain. He had been bullied for a long time, and his classroom desk was covered in cruel words, calling him garbage and saying he should just disappear. As he stared at the insults carved into his desk, he couldn't help but feel that this cruelty was becoming his everyday normal. In the background, a group of boys laughed loudly, clearly proud of whatever mean trick they had pulled off this time. They teased him with a nickname, Ruba-kun, and one of them threw a bottle at his head. As he quietly cleaned up the mess they made, they watched him like it was a game, enjoying every second of his misery. They even told him they'd be depending on him to clean up tomorrow too. While throwing away the trash, he couldn't help but think, no matter how bad things were for him, that girl might still have it worse. As he looked to his side, something caught his eye, a colorful poster about skydiving. The bold words promised a life-changing experience, which made him chuckle. To him, it all sounded like a silly gimmick, so he crumpled it up and tossed it aside, thinking it was a total waste of time. The next day didn't go any better. Both he and the girl faced more bullying, and like always, they ended up meeting during lunch on the school rooftop, sitting near the edge again. This time, the girl surprised him by handing over the same skydiving flyer he had thrown away. She said someone gave it to her at the subway station and that it seemed interesting to her. Trying to hide his surprise, he laughed it off and said skydiving was just a flashy way to get attention. He joked that it was the kind of thing people do when they want to act cool. His words were light, but her mood instantly shifted. She looked smaller, like her confidence had been chipped away. They both started talking about how life-changing experiences were probably just marketing tricks to sell something. But then the atmosphere grew heavy. The girl softly said, almost as if thinking out loud, "Maybe jumping down is easier than I thought. And yet, I still haven't done it." Those words hit him hard. He didn't know how to respond. Until now, he thought she was holding herself together better than him. But in that moment, he realized she was struggling too, maybe even more, barely hanging on. At first, he tried to convince himself that maybe she just said the wrong thing, that maybe she didn't mean what it sounded like. But her words echoed in his mind. She said she came there to die. Feeling uneasy, he nervously asked if she really meant that. She quickly shifted the topic, explaining that she was actually talking about skydiving, that jumping out of a plane seemed kind of easy to her. She went on, saying how it might be an exciting and life-changing thing to try. Maybe, she said, it could be the first step toward changing herself. Her eyes lit up for a moment with a tiny spark of hope. Later that evening, as he lay in bed, trying to fall asleep, he found himself staring at the same skydiving poster. He sighed and muttered that expecting too much from something so small probably wasn't a good idea. He wondered, are people really that simple? Can one big moment flip their whole life around? He pictured her jumping from a plane with a parachute, trying to leave everything behind. And the image made him laugh a little. After everything she'd been through, the endless bullying, her messy hair, the bruises on her legs, even the burn marks on her hand, could she really believe that a single skydive could wash it all away? Even though he smiled, deep down he was serious. He didn't think people were that foolish. In his eyes, pain doesn't vanish in an instant, change is slow, and even the happiest moments can be poisoned by everything that came before. He felt a little sad thinking that she might not come to the rooftop with him anymore. As he closed his eyes that night, he thought about how quickly life can change and silently wished for rain the next day, hoping bad weather would cancel the skydiving trip. But the day of the jump arrived, and the sun was shining brighter than ever, not a single cloud in sight. At the drop zone, a loud, energetic man greeted everyone with a booming voice, shouting that today would be unforgettable. He introduced himself to Utaka, and his cheerful energy made it obvious to the boy that this guy truly loved what he did. Utaka looked around, expecting to see the girl, but she wasn't there. The instructor called out, asking if someone named Suzume had arrived. That's when we finally learned her name. Suddenly, a voice came from behind, loud and out of breath. Suzume came running, gasping for air, and quickly apologized for being late. But something about her was completely different now. Her hair was freshly cut, her energy felt lighter, and there was a new kind of confidence in her smile. She spoke more, smiled more, and looked genuinely excited. With her fists clenched in determination, she looked at him and said she was ready, really ready, for this new step forward. The boy had been almost certain she wouldn't show up, so seeing her there felt unreal. He couldn't believe how much she had changed in just a single day. Even her hair, which used to look messy and uneven, was now neatly cut. It almost felt like she was a different person. When he asked about her new look, she smiled brightly and casually said she just felt like switching things up. That small answer hit him hard. He had never even considered changing himself. And yet, here was someone who had gone through so much more pain than he ever had, already showing signs of growth, all because of this one little experience that could easily be mistaken for a reckless leap. He didn't understand how people could be like that. It's all meaningless, he mumbled to himself. He couldn't stop thinking about how she seemed to be changing already, even before they had actually jumped. A quiet fear grew inside him, the fear of being left behind. Deep down, he knew he was still stuck, still waiting for something, anything, to help him move forward. The instructor then gathered everyone and said it was time to fill out some forms. He handed out protective suits and cheerfully guided them toward the plane they'd be using. But something about his light-hearted attitude felt a little off, especially considering what they were about to do. One of the weirdest things about the whole situation was the name of the plane. It was called Flyer Penguin Boy. As everyone started putting on their suits, the boy noticed that Suzume was doing just fine. In fact, she seemed a little distant from him, like she was already in a different place emotionally. He couldn't stop staring at her, having a hard time accepting how quickly she'd changed. That's when the instructor suddenly popped up behind him, teasingly asking if he needed help with his puppy love problems. The guy got way too close, and the boy instantly backed off, telling him to respect personal space. But the instructor just smiled and said it was obvious he'd been watching Suzume the whole time. It looked to him like the boy had feelings for her, and that something was clearly bothering him. Frustrated, the boy turned to him with a serious face and said it was all his fault. He blamed the instructor for giving Suzume false hope with this life-changing skydiving experience. She believed in it so much that she even cut her hair to mark a new beginning. He explained with a heavy heart that she was just an innocent girl who had been through a lot, and now she had put all her hope into something that might end up disappointing her. He wasn't mad, he just felt really sorry for her. After hearing the boy's words, the instructor's cheerful attitude completely faded. With a serious tone, he told the boy that if he truly thought Suzume, or any person, was that weak, then he didn't understand people at all. He explained that during his job, he had met all kinds of people, those dealing with heartbreak, stressed out workers, nervous students, and others carrying heavy burdens, and the ones who chose to jump from a plane weren't running away. They were the ones who had already made a strong decision deep inside. Giving him a thumbs up, the instructor told him to stop doubting everything and instead go support his girlfriend, understand her reasons, and be there for her. Time moved quickly, and soon it was time to board the plane. As they got ready, Suzume suddenly brought up the question the boy had asked her earlier, why she wanted to jump. When she paused for a moment, he worried that maybe he had pushed her too far. But then she quietly began to open up. She said the reason she wanted to skydive was because she wanted to finally let go of the rooftop, the place where she had clung to all her pain. For most of her life, she had been hit and hurt so often that she became numb to it. The bullying had been cruel and constant, and she just wanted to break free from all of it. Every single day, someone would burn her skin with a cigarette, and her hair became a target for bullies to ruin and laugh at. The pain built up so much that it felt like she could barely breathe. Whenever the pain got too much, she'd go up to the rooftop, thinking about ending it all. But actually taking that final step was always the hardest. Fear would always hold her back. A part of her kept hoping that maybe tomorrow would be the day, but it never was. This became her routine. She started forcing smiles at the people who hurt her, pretending she was okay. Deep down, she was still trapped, stuck in a life that felt like a never-ending prison. She often wondered if this was how things would always be. But now, looking straight at him, with eyes full of determination and hope, she said she was ready to let go of that pain. She wanted to move forward. For the first time, she wanted to stand up and give her all to something different, to really try, with everything she had. She admitted she had always seen herself as a loser, someone who didn't matter. But the desire to change, to leave that dark past behind, was stronger than her fear. She had already started healing. And the boy? He was so shocked by her words that he couldn't even speak. He just stood there, wondering why he couldn't say a single thing in response. The fragile, shy girl he once believed Suzume to be, she wasn't that person anymore. As they climbed into the plane, the instructor, full of energy, told everyone this would be an unforgettable experience. He pointed to the sky and explained that once they gave a thumbs-down signal, it would be time to jump. Their altitude was over 3,000 meters, so they had to do everything exactly right. He reassured them that they'd be strapped in with 2 parachutes, and the instructors would handle the rest. Suzume noticed how quiet he had become and looked at him with concern. As they prepared to jump, she kept watching him closely. Suddenly, he shouted, his voice full of emotion. "What about me? Nothing's changing for me." He couldn't hold it in anymore. He cried out that Suzume used to be just like him, broken, hopeless, the kind of person who once thought about ending it all on a rooftop. But now, the one person who seemed to truly understand him was changing, growing, and he felt left behind. He begged her not to change, not to leave him alone in a world that felt cruel and cold. That's when it hit him. He hadn't come on this trip to cheer her on. Deep down, he had wanted her to give up too, just like he had. But now he wanted to believe in her. Maybe, just maybe, if she could change, so could he. As the plane roared to life and started to rise, the ground grew smaller and smaller beneath them, and everything suddenly felt real. He noticed Suzume trembling as she looked down from the sky-high plane. The brave, confident version of her from earlier seemed to be fading. Now he really wanted to see if she could follow through with this change. Maybe, just maybe, he could support her with his words. Even after all the time they had spent together, he realized he barely knew who she truly was. As he watched her, she was softly repeating to herself, I can change, like a mantra. Seeing her like that gave him the courage to speak up. Forgetting the past for a moment, he found the strength to call out with a shaky voice, I want to change too. Tears welled up in his eyes, pouring down his cheeks. He wasn't just scared, he was terrified of being left behind. He cried harder, confessing to Suzume that he didn't want to be stuck anymore. He wanted to grow too. She looked at him with a gentle smile and without hesitation, leaped from the plane. Her words echoed in the wind, let's leave the past behind and be reborn together. And then she was gone. It was his turn now. As he stood at the edge, the roar of the plane's engine and the rush of the wind drowned everything else out. There was no time to think, no words left to say. Together, they jumped into the open sky, two tiny figures against the endless blue. The wind hit him like a wall, and fear gripped every part of his body. But they had taken the leap. During the fall, he kept his eyes tightly shut, too scared to look. But the instructor behind him shouted over the wind, telling him to open his eyes so he wouldn't miss the incredible view, something he'd remember for the rest of his life. Slowly he opened them, and was stunned. What he saw was a world so beautiful and pure, it felt almost unreal. The sunlight poured down, lighting up the green fields below, and the rivers looked like veins running across the earth. When the parachute opened, the sudden force made him jolt. He gasped for air, still catching his breath, and took another look around. Everything the poster had promised was true. This view really was unforgettable. In that moment, he felt something shift inside him. Maybe this small step he took, this one brave moment, actually did leave a mark on his life. Once back on the ground, he felt the grass under his hands and was filled with so much gratitude that he forgot about everything else. Suddenly, loud shouting snapped him out of it. From above, Suzume was coming down like a rocket, kicking through the air while the instructor yelled for her to calm down. She was terrified and thrilled at the same time. When she finally landed, the instructor looked like he couldn't believe they'd made it. Suzume hit the ground, completely drained and shaken. But her face said something else, relief, pride, and a new kind of strength that shined in her eyes. As they looked at each other, he wondered if that skydive had changed his life. The truth? It hadn't. Everything around him stayed the same. The bullies still picked on him. His daily life hadn't magically improved. One of the usual bullies ordered him to clean up a mess, but this time he stood his ground. He looked the guy in the eyes and told him to clean it himself. He had his own arms and legs, didn't he? Then, without saying more, he walked away. But even then, he still found himself climbing back to the rooftop, his usual escape. When he got there, he was surprised to see Suzume standing at the edge. He asked what she was doing there, and she said she just wanted to visit the place one last time. Panicked, he yelled at her not to jump. But she smiled and explained that's not what she meant. She said that sometimes life can feel like you're standing on the edge of the world, like there's nothing left. But it's not the end. It never really is. As they sat together, just quietly being there for each other, he gathered the courage to ask her something. Nervously, stuttering a little, he asked if she'd give him her line ID. She laughed and teased him, saying he was a bit late to ask that now. In that quiet moment, they both understood. They had taken a step forward in life. Just one small step, and now maybe it's your turn to take a step too.